So, okay, you guys should see my screen again, right? Cool. Okay, so let's start. You guys can definitely answer any or ask any questions you want during this. But I thought I would do a formulator demo just because I have a lot of people that don't really know where to start when it comes to starting out building the meal. Obviously, you have this, oops, let me load that back in. You have the sample recipe that you can kind of look at, but some people may not know exactly what each ingredient provides or means or why it's in there. And so I kind of just wanted to go through starting from scratch and showing you how to like figure out what foods provide what and how you can build a meal if you don't know everything that you might think you're expected to know with this, because it's pretty easy after you kind of get the hang of it. So you guys can ask any questions you want about anything and I'll answer it as I do this. But okay, let's start out with how you start out with the formulator when you open it, which is with the sample recipe. So as you can see, we've got that plugged in, but it's plugged in for a around 40-pound dog that needs 1,000 kilocalories. Obviously, not every dog needs that. And also I have the cat one up here too, if anyone has cat questions. But yeah, we'll start with dog. So a lot of people wish that if they just kind of like change their dog's weight, it would change the weight of the food. And I wish I could do that. There's probably a way I could figure that out, but I just don't have it working that way yet. And not everything scales exactly like perfectly. So let's start out with this. So let's say we have a 20-pound dog, 2 years old. This only really applies, like it doesn't change the caloric needs or anything. It basically just, it's the formulator's way of figuring out when a dog becomes a puppy to an adult, because large breeds aren't really an adult until maybe like 18 months or so, but small breeds, they could start having the adult nutrient intake at like 12 months. So that's kind of what that is for. So, but I'm just changing it just because. So 20-pound dog, average activity level, spayed, and we're maintaining the weight. So, oops, let me admit these people. I'm going to be bad at that. So obviously it's, the recipe is for a 40-pound dog. And so we have a lot, that we need to take out, but how do we know? So what you can do is, of course, like mess with these numbers, like 2.0, like kind of just reduce it. Maybe you could try even reducing it by half and that could like, help, but just like kind of eyeballing things and like just going down the lines, just bringing it down, guessing, basically. That's what I'm doing right now. I have no idea exactly what this dog needs just by looking at it. I kind of have an idea, but I'm just kind of bringing each thing down and figuring out as I go. Let's do that really quick. 20 and 0.2, guessing. So now we're, lower. Some things are a little too low, so I kind of have to alter my ingredients a little bit more. I also want to take a look at the ratios down here, the PMR ratios, because I kind of want to stick to the similar, like either 80%, total muscle meat, 10% bone, and maximum, 10% organ meats, or if you want to follow the ones that I kind of usually use, it's 50, 25, 12, 5, 8. Depending on the ingredients you use, of course, that's going to be not perfect, but just kind of keeping it in the range. So I see, oh, maybe I should increase the bone just a little bit. And as you can see, the magnesium is low. So that kind of means that the bone should be increased, which I know not everyone knows. But it's just kind of playing around with the ingredients. So that is one way to do it, just playing around with this. Another way to do it is just kind of start everything from scratch. And as you can see, it's completely blank. And basically, you know, let's pretend I'm someone who just started learning about raw feeding, and I know that, you know, muscle meat, bone, and organ are things that need to be in the diet. So I basically know I need to add a raw meaty bone. I need to add some muscular meat, ideally some muscular organs as well if I can find it, liver, and a second secreting organ. So we can start there. So this of course depends on what you have in your area, but let's just say I have a 20-pound dog. So a good meaty bone for that is something like chicken wings or chicken neck. So let's just go with neck and make sure it's the bone included one. And of course I'm like, well, how much do I feed? So this is kind of where the cheat sheet that I have, the free cheat sheet, comes in handy. So this basically shows you the muscular meat, like the animals that you can feed, the plain flesh, boneless meat. These show the muscular organs, a few additional muscular meat. That's kind of just like parts like tongue, tendon. That's not something that should take up a ton of the meal, but it's still fine to add in. And then the raw meaty bones, which show the bone percentages of each, which I'll kind of start with in a second. The second secreting organs, because people a lot of the time get heart mixed up with second secreting organ. They think that heart is a organ meat that they can add in for this section, but unfortunately it is not. So these basically show you the second secreting organ and of course the liver. So we're starting out with the first page here. So I do know that chicken neck is a meaty bone. And from what I've heard, it should be around 10% of the diet, 10 to 12%. So I can kind of go off this right here. This won't always be accurate. The caloric intake is more accurate, but to make things easier for new people, I always say to start out with the percentage of the body. So usually adults that need to maintain their weight, it's usually 2.5 to 3%. I think the formulator is reading this for 2.5% right now. I honestly can't remember, but basically it's saying that my 20-pound dog needs about 8 ounces. So we need to figure out what 10% of 8 ounces is. And raw meaty bones kind of get confusing because we're trying to figure out the actual bone. So the weight of the chicken neck, I'll have to figure out, the weight of the bone and the weight of the meat on it. Now, I'm sorry if this is like something everyone already knows, but I kind of just wanted to go over this really quick. So chicken necks, let's see how much bone is in a chicken neck. Where are they? I think they're right here. So a chicken neck without skin is around 50 to 75% bone. It kind of depends on the type of chicken neck, but I think the formulator, I have it as 50% right now. So 50% of the weight of a single chicken neck will be bone only. So let's say, I kind of know the weight of chicken necks usually. It's usually around like 1.2 ounces or something. So we can get our calculator out. And so if my raw meaty bone is 1.2 ounces and 50% of that is bone of 1.2, that should be easy because it's 50%, but I'm just making sure. So 0.6 ounces of that 1.2 ounces is bone only. So I kind of have an idea of the bone percentage now, the weight of the bone. So we need to feed 8 ounces and 10% of that needs to be bone. So 10% of 8 ounces is of course 0.8 ounces. And the chicken neck is already at 0.6 ounces. So we can so let's just plug in, let's say my chicken neck is 1.2 ounces. So we can plug that in and we can just scroll down and take a look at the calcium and phosphorus because that's what meaty bones provide, of course, magnesium as well. And it's not really meeting it yet. So we can also take a look. Well, we can't take a look at that just yet because we still have other things to add before you can see how much bone is actually in the meal. So let's just stick to this. So let's say, let's feed 2 chicken eggs. So of course, 1.2 is, well, okay. So 2 chicken eggs would be 2.4 ounces. And oh, we're meeting quite a bit. But oh, so we're meeting our calcium requirements now. Magnesium is still low, but that will be provided through other things in the food. So we've got our meaty bone down for now. I like to start out like with meaty bone, secreting organ, muscular organ, and then muscular meat. That's just kind of how I build. So let's start out with the liver next. I know that liver needs to be around 2 to 5%. I personally think it should just be 2 to 3%. But let's try. So let's say I have beef liver. So what is 5%? Or well, let's do 3%. So then we would get our calculator, figure out what 3% of 8 ounces is, and that's 0.24 ounces. So I can start with that, 0.24. And with beef liver, if we take a look at the cheat sheet, liver provides vitamin A, and I think I have somewhere that said, oh yeah, beef and bison liver are especially high in vitamin D, so that will add into the vitamin D as well. And I also have somewhere on here, which I can't find right now, but beef, and if I don't, I'm gonna add it. But beef liver and basically all ruminant animal livers provide a lot of copper, which is kind of hard to provide through the diet without liver and a few other secreting organs, but liver is a great source of copper. So vitamin A and copper are probably gonna be met at this weight, but let's check. So where are you, copper? Copper is not met yet. So as you can see, well, again, let's not look at this yet. Well, vitamin A is definitely met because only a super small amount of liver can meet that, but we still need to meet the copper requirements. So let's bring it up to 3. And take a look back at the copper. Okay, it's being met. So next is the second secreting organ. And if you don't know what those are, we can take a look at the cheat sheet, and these are all the second secreting organs. And you can see what each one kind of like provides the most of. For adults, I mean, it's really not a big deal to choose a specific one, but I usually go with kidney because not only is it super easy to find in most cases, it also provides a bunch of B vitamins, iron, things like that. So it's usually an all-around good organ meat. So kidney, and we'll stick with beef kidney because that's pretty easy to find, at least for me. And then the kidney is usually 5 to 8%. Or the second secreting organ is usually 5 to 8%. So let's do 8%. So 8% of 8 ounces is 0.64. So let's start out with that, 0.64 ounces. And let's see what's being met with that. So we've still got a good way to go, but it did bring up a little bit of the copper, and it brought up a lot of the B vitamins. So kidney is super great in providing B vitamins. So we got that going on. Perfect. Okay, so now I like to go to the second secreting, or sorry, the muscular organs. So these are things like heart, lungs, tripe, and gizzards. Let's say I'm still a beginner. I don't really know where to source things like tripe and lungs and stuff yet. So all I can really find is chicken hearts. So let's do chicken hearts. Where'd you go? Okay. And there's not really like a specific amount of like heart you should feed. You just shouldn't feed more than 25% of the diet. And since heart is part of the muscular organ percentage, that's usually around 25%. It doesn't have to be that high, but just that's the maximum. So I'm just going to say, I can look back down here. I can see I'm at 3.3 ounces so far, and it should be around 8. Usually it's a little bit higher to meet the caloric intake, but I'm just going off of this right now. So let's say we'll do 0.8 ounces, just guessing. And we'll take a look. A lot of the amino acids are being met now. Copper still going up because heart has some copper in it. Heart has iron in it as well, so it's bringing that up. And it has more B vitamins, so these are increasing as well. But of course, muscle meat like pork loin, ground beef, chicken thigh, things like that will meet a lot of this. So let's start adding in those. So let's say, turkey thigh is something I can find. Turkey thigh, where are you? So let's say I found turkey thigh with no skin. So I need to find raw turkey thigh meat only. There it is. Okay. So muscular meat takes up the biggest portion of the diet. So we're at 4 ounces right now. So basically we need to fill the next 4 ounces with muscular meat only. So these can be at higher weights. So I'm just going to say 1 ounce of turkey thigh. And the amino acids are almost being met now. It's just this one that's a little low. Fatty acids are getting closer. Chicken is really good at providing these two, chicken fat and pork fat. Still low on EPA and DHA, still a little low on magnesium, potassium, iron, these minerals, things, just 1 B vitamin left. So we're getting closer, but we still need to add more muscle meat. So another thing that I found is 90-10 ground beef. So 90-10. Okay, just had to admit someone. So let's say, we're gonna do 2 ounces of this because beef and, red meats in general kind of provide more minerals than white meats and chicken and turkey than that. So I don't know, let's keep it at 2 and take a look. Now I'm also keeping an eye on the calories. They're still quite low. And that's probably going to increase my whole weight of food just a bit, but we'll see. Now, ALE is finally met. Magnesium is slowly getting there. Potassium, chloride, well, chloride is going to be low because, most food databases don't really provide that nutrient, so I kind of ignore the chloride there. But potassium is still low, and of course, a lot of these minerals and this B vitamin. So something that provides thiamine in particular is pork. And pork is pretty easy to find at my grocery store. So let's do pork loin, pork tenderloin with some fat on it. So let's do, to get up to 8 ounces, let's just do 1 ounce. And see what's being met with my finally, 8 ounce of food. A lot of things are still low, and that's going to be typical because it's still not meeting the caloric requirement. And now is a good time to actually look at the macronutrients and PMR ratios now that we have every part put in. So the fat is a little low, but for an adult, that's not incredibly terrible. I'd still like to get it up a little bit more though. So we're at 14% bone. That's pretty, at the maximum height I would like to go for an adult. Liver is at 3, so that's good. So I might be able to increase the second secreting organ just a bit and the muscular organ. So let's try that. So let's bring that up to 0.7 and let's bring heart up to 1. Of course, that's getting, a little above our suggested amount of weight of food, but that's okay. Calories are rising and we're basically meeting most of the things we need now. A lot of these things are going to be needed to be provided through other whole foods, and we'll get to that in a second. So now we're at 8% second secreting organ, almost 4% liver. We're getting a little lower on the bone because we increased the organ meats. So what I like to do now, since the calories are still low, is just increase the muscular meat. And keep an eye on the nutrient ratios after this, but we'll just increase some muscle meat and see what happens. So I'm going to increase the pork loin to 1.5. And actually, we'll increase both. So we'll do 2.5 and we'll do 1.5 here. And we'll take a look, still a little low, but we still have whole foods to add. So I'll keep it like this for now. I have a few questions too, so let me check that. What's the ideal fat percentage? For adults, I usually say maximum 10%, but it can go down to 8, 7%. So I guess 7 to 10%. And then what is the macronutrient percentages for adult cats? We'll get to cats. I'll do that in a second. So now I'm just keeping an eye on the PMR ratios. We're at 12% bone now, 3% liver, 7% second organ, 10% muscular organs. So these are looking good. So Karen asked, so it's more important to meet the caloric intake rather than the weight of the meal. I say yes. You know, this can vary between pet, but I always pay more attention to the caloric intake because the weight of the food will change depending on the ingredients that you feed. So let's say I'm feeding a lot of lean meats, it'll take a lot more weight of food to meet that caloric intake with a lot of lean meat. If I'm feeding very high fat meats, it'll, you know, maybe meet that recommended weight of food and meet the caloric intake. So it kind of just depends on what you feed. I always like to keep an eye on it. You know, if I'm feeding, you know, a bunch of different foods and I finally meet the caloric intake, but I'm at like 15 ounces, I know something's not right there and I need to change things because my dog just can't eat that much. So it's kind of a balance there. But it's not unusual to see the weight of food be a little higher. Just to meet that caloric intake. And if you notice your pet's gaining weight on that, then I would suggest changing this to inactive. Doesn't mean that your pet's inactive, it just kind of decreases the caloric intake a bit to their specific needs. Or you could change their weight. Obviously, they're still 20 pounds, but maybe they need a caloric intake of a dog that's 17 pounds. I know with Matsu, he's 25 pounds. And he actually, you know, gained a little at this caloric intake. So I did have to, you know, bring it down to inactive to kind of get his weight back to where it needed to be. And this caloric intake formula is based on, there's a few different sources that you can find it, but it's basically a veterinary created caloric intake formula. But I do notice that it's a little high, at least for my dog. So yeah, so back to this. So magnesium is still a little low, but let's see if our whole foods can kind of meet that. Of course, vitamin D, vitamin E, iodine, manganese, these are things that are going to be needed to be filled with other foods other than meat. So let's start adding those. But I don't know what whole foods to add to provide these. So we can take a look at page 2 of the cheat sheet. And this kind of goes over basically the common nutrients that are going to be low in a meal like this and what to provide. So let's start out with omega-3s. This is EPA and DHA. So things like, you know, basically all fish, but we want to feed fish that are low in mercury and high in omega-3s, which are these. So smelt, anchovies, mackerel, salmon, things like that. And then I also like to look at vitamin D right under it because a lot of the same fish can provide vitamin D as well. So mackerel, herring, salmon, and sardines are very good at providing vitamin D. So let's say I could only find salmon and it's only canned salmon. So we'll do canned pink salmon. Make sure that's, of course, only canned in water. And let's say, you know, I have no idea how much to feed of this. So I'm going to start out saying like 0.3 ounces and see if that meets my EPA and DHA and vitamin D. So of course, yes, easily meets the EPA and DHA. And it also brings up the magnesium a little. And vitamin D is almost being met. So I know I need to increase the salmon a little bit. So let's go to 0.4. Go back down and vitamin D is being met. Cool. So go back to the cheat sheet. Next is vitamin E. So seeds can provide vitamin E, but they also provide a lot of calories. So, I mean, I don't like to provide, all the calories from seeds. Maybe it could help, boost that caloric intake if you don't want to feed more meats, but I wouldn't rely on it for calories. I have another question. Are you going to review the calcium and phosphorus ratio at the end? This is one thing I struggle with, as the raw meaty bone has the phosphorus higher than allowed. Yes, I'm going to go over the ratios after I build the meal. So this is kind of how I usually build. I basically build, see what nutrients need to be met, keep an eye on the macronutrients and PMR ratios. And once I get everything looking good, then I go to the nutrient ratios and adjust. So vitamin E, yes. I usually like to provide a vitamin E oil because it's not going to add to the calories of the meal, and it's also kind of a more pure source of it. So vitamin E oil, the ones in here that I have are usually ones that I suggest the most. I usually like to use the drops more than the pills because I can control it more. Vitamin E. So a lot of the times I use the 60 milligram now vitamin E. Right now I'm using the Solgar vitamin E. They're basically the same. They're both mixed tocopherols, which is the best version or type 2 supplement. So let's just say I chose Solgar. Oops, that's the pills. Vitamin E oil drops right here. And, I don't know how much to add, so I'll just do 1 drop and see if that meets it. And oops. And see from there. So yes, it does meet it, but a rule of thumb with feeding vitamin E in fish, if you're feeding a lot of fish, you want to increase the vitamin E because of the PUFAs in the meal. So right now, I mean, it's meeting it, but I could add, well, I'm only feeding 0.4 ounces of fish, so I wouldn't, need to increase the vitamin E to 2, but it wouldn't hurt either. It's an antioxidant, and it's vitamin E isn't something that really has been seen in overdoses, so I wouldn't be too worried just feeding 2 drops. 1 second. What does it mean when it says meeting recommended allowance, but rather than green, the color box is red? So that might be a bug. If it says meeting required allowance, but the box is red, it shouldn't be, it should be green. So if you want to share your formulator with me and show me what that is, and I can try and help you with that. What is PUFAs? Polyunsaturated fatty acids. So basically, I'm not going to be great at explaining this, but basically, fish provide omega-3s and fats and things like that. So the higher the fat, higher, I'm not great at explaining, but the more fat that's in the diet, the more, chance that it has to oxidize. And fish oil in particular oxidizes quickly, especially if you're feeding like actual fish oil. So if you're adding fish oil, you need to add an antioxidant to that just so there's not a lot of oxidation going on in the diet. I'm never good with fats, so I'm always going to be sounding stupid when I talk about that. But yeah, I have a video on it that I did a lot of research on, and I sound better at explaining it in the video, so I can link that video to you if you'd like. But yeah, so okay, we're good with vitamin E. Next is iodine. Okay, actually, I'll just send it to you because I'll probably forget. Hello, I can't. Okay, I guess it's not letting me click my. I'll just have it up there and that'll remind me. Okay, back to this. Iodine is next. So mainly if we're going to feed a whole food source, kelp is what's going to provide the most iodine. There's also iodized salt, but I don't like to add too much sodium to the diet unless necessary. So I usually go with kelp or iodine drops, but let's do kelp. So the main thing that we usually use is kelp powder by Now. So kelp powder. And this powder is very concentrated. You only need the smallest bit. And this one is actually kind of confusing to get right on the formulator because the kelp powder comes with a little scoop. So people usually want to say like, oh, half scoop. Well, I don't even have scoop. But I don't know, something that they might also use is like teaspoon. And it doesn't recognize it by that. So what Now basically measured out is it's per weight. So the Now vitamin E, or sorry, Now kelp powder, let me find it just to give you a visual. Now kelp powder. So, okay, so 1 level scoop is 90 milligrams. So that's the weight. So we're basically judging the weight of the kelp, which not everyone has a milligram scale. So I kind of just say, this is going to be kind of sounding confusing, but 90 milligrams of the kelp's weight is 450 micrograms of iodine. So I kind of just usually say, the scoop, 1 scoop is 450 micrograms. So, my dog only needs about 120, 130 micrograms of iodine. So I would say I would first try and be like, okay, what's half of a scoop then? So 90 divided by 2 is 45. So 45 milligrams is what I'm trying to figure out. So let's just say 45 milligrams. So that's a half scoop. It's okay if you don't have a milligram scale because we know that that is a half scoop. So let's take a look at iodine. Obviously, oh, it's almost there. It's kind of high though. So I don't like to over supplement iodine. So let's kind of bring it down to a 1/3 scoop. So 90. So that'd be around 30. So 30, so 1/3 scoop. It's almost there. You could do that. I also, I kind of like to bring it down a little lower. So let's just do like 25 milligrams. That's a little, no, so we could do 30. That's fine. 30 milligrams. So about a 1/3 scoop is what I would need for a 30 or 20-pound dog. 1 level scoop every other day. My dog is 42 pounds, if that helps anyone. So yeah, you can do it every other day. So if you're providing like 2 days worth of iodine in one meal, just skip it the next day. So next, oh my gosh, I'm so bright. I didn't even look at myself. Sorry. I don't know what to do about that right now. Okay, so now that we have the iodine in order, let's do the manganese. So blue mussels, green-lipped mussels, but green-lipped mussels are so much like less than blue mussels. So I pretty much never feed green-lipped mussels. I just feed blue mussels. And just the tiniest bit will meet that manganese. Green tripe also provides manganese, and pumpkin seeds, of course, also supplemented manganese. So I don't know, like if I'm a new person, I don't really know how to find tripe. So I'm gonna try to find mussels. And a lot of people are worried. They're like, if I don't live near the sea or something, I don't know how I'm supposed to find mussels. But I actually found mussels easily in Virginia, like not by the shore, in Walmart. So I think Walmart probably will carry mussels in most areas. So blue mussels. And again, I'm just going to start out with a random weight. I usually start out low, so I'm going to do 0.2 ounces. And check the manganese. it's almost there. So let's try 0.3. 0.3. It's meeting it, but it's still saying it's low because it's probably like the denominators or the numbers like after, but we're meeting it at 0.3. Hold on, I got a few questions. Sorry, can you also at the end, if it's easier, go over if we can put kelp powder in the meal prep containers that are to be freezed, or if it's something that should be added at each meal upon serving? I believe vitamin E drops should be added upon serving, right? Yes. So kelp can be added in the meal prep containers, but any oils should be added at mealtime. Oh, Kroger does too. Yeah, I've seen them there as well. Meyers, I don't know if that's how you spell it, Meijers, does also carry mussels. Cool. Okay, so yes, we're meeting manganese. I'm just gonna do like 3.35. Okay, so at least it like goes green because that might be annoying. Magnesium is still a little low, so we'll keep an eye on that. Chloride, again, I have a note next to it that says that it may still appear low, so I'm not gonna really worry about that. Same with vitamin K, and then same with choline. So basically everything else is being met. The calories are still low and the magnesium is still low. So at this point, well, let me check something. Zinc. Zinc is also something that's low in diets, raw diets, but it is being met. So that's good. So next, I like to check the nutrient ratios of the meal. So I always start with calcium and phosphorus, and checking the cheat sheet, I have the nutrient ratio relationships right here. And calcium and phosphorus for an adult should be around 1:1 to 1.2:1. So I'm at 9.9 to 1. So I need to kind of increase that meaty bone a little bit. Even though it's meeting the calcium requirements, the ratio is a little off. So I need to increase it a little bit. Also, something I can do if I don't want to feed too much bone, which I'm at 12, it's not a big deal, but it's still at 0.9 to 1. So what I can also do is either increase the organ meat a little bit or increase the muscle meat a little bit as well. I can actually increase the second organ just a little bit. So I'll do that and see what's up with that. So 0.8, or sorry, decrease. I need to decrease that to bring the calcium up. So what I can do actually is decrease the muscle meat. So let's bring that down to 2.3. Oh, so now it did change. We're at 1:1 now. So I always like to check just to make sure we're still at okay ratios. 13 is okay, and that's usually what I see with necks. So we're good there. So the next ratio I like to look at is zinc to copper. This should be around, zinc to copper should be around 10 to 1. So 8 to 1 isn't bad, but it can be better. And this is where, again, we're meeting the zinc, but the ratio isn't perfect. And, you know, if you have the option to feed oysters, you can add them here just to fix that. I wouldn't necessarily use a zinc supplement because zinc and like supplemented zinc can be weird. But, you know, so let's say I can find oysters. And really, it only takes the tiniest bit. Let's do 0.2 ounces. We're at 10.3 to 1, so that's a pretty good ratio now. So zinc to copper, next is zinc to iron. And zinc to iron should be about 2 to 1. So we're basically there. We're at 1.9 to 1, so I wouldn't mess with it anymore. So, okay. Of course, our calories are still a little low, and that can be, you know, annoying because we just got everything perfect and now we have to, you know, change things again. So I like to just scale them a tiny bit. So we're at 2.6, let's do 2.8. I don't want to scale the liver that much. We'll scale the kidney, you know, to maybe 0.75, chicken heart, maybe 1.2, turkey, 1.65. And this will change the ratios, which is, yes, annoying, but we'll fix it. So now, you know, maybe my dog does perfectly fine on 480 calories, but maybe not. Maybe I need to increase. So let's increase it just a little bit more. So we're at 2.9, 8. And again, like if this weight is getting too much for your dog and, you think that they'll do fine on 480 calories, then there's no need to increase it. So, let's just say 500 calories. So let's get it to that. So 8, 7, okay. Actually, let's do 11. Let's not go over 12 ounces. So 5 and 5. So we're basically at 12 ounces right now. That's the max I want to go. I don't want to go any higher. So hopefully, this is kind of where you figure out, does my dog do well on this caloric intake? Are they losing weight? Are they gaining? And you kind of, alter your recipe a little bit. So let's go back to the calcium and phosphorus. It's at 0.9 again. How annoying, right? So let's bring the heart down a bit. So that helps because muscular organs like heart, that's going to be high in phosphorus, and just bringing it down a little will fix that. Zinc to copper, again, we're still good, 10 to 1, around that. And zinc to iron, we're still at 1.9 to 1. Another thing I like to look at is the fatty acid, La to ALA. So usually this can be a range. So 15 to 1 to 25 to 1 is a pretty good range. I'm at 18.9 to 1, so that's good. Usually when you're mixing red meats and white meats, like poultry and beef, this La to ALA ratio will look pretty good. If you're only feeding poultry, it'll be, a little messed up. If you're only feeding beef and red meats, it'll be a little messed up, but I always like to mix. That's why variety is good. Okay, so everything is looking good. My fat is a little low. I could, of course, feed something like, ground beef at 80-20. Of course, that'll bring the calories up. We're closer to our caloric intake now, and it brings up the fat, but maybe that's too much, So you just need to change it to what you think. And then, this is looking good too. Around 13% bone, almost 3% liver, 7% second organ, 9% muscular, and 67% muscular meat. So yeah, so that is a pretty decent recipe. I also, the last thing that I do is check the difference column. You can, look at that number wise or percentage wise. Percentage wise will kind of freak people out because they'll be like, oh my God, it's 1,000% over. That's like bad. But no, that's totally fine. That's usually how it is with amino acids, and that's how it is with vitamin A, B vitamins sometimes. So I wouldn't freak out over the percentages. This is why I like to look at the numbers. Nothing looks too crazy high. Sodium will always appear a little bit high because meaty bones like poultry, meaty bones, and poultry in general and pork will be a lot higher in sodium, but this isn't too high. A lot of these will say when you're meeting like the upper limit. Some of them don't have an upper limit though, so I just like to keep an eye on it. Everything is else looking good. Selenium also is a little bit high. That's totally fine. Selenium is also an antioxidant. Iodine isn't too high. Vitamin A, of course, that appears high all the time. Vitamin D, E, those are looking good. So everything's looking good here. So that was kind of my process on making a meal. I have a few questions. I'm wondering if instead of scaling up, could I replace a meat with a fattier meat? Yes, and that's basically what I did with the 80-20 beef. That's kind of the 90-10 is a leaner beef. So, if you want to bring the fat up, but you don't want to bring the weight of the food up, just feed a fattier cut and that will help. Of course, you don't want to feed too much fat, so I would always take a look at the fat down here, make sure it's not going over 10%. But yeah, you can do that. Can you share this recipe you just built with us after this? Yeah, I guess I can. I don't know where I would put it. I'll think about that because I don't want to add it to the monthly recipes because that's kind of like a theme each month. But yeah. Something I am concerned by is how high Scout's BUN is. I know raw-fed dogs are higher, but this seems still too high for a recommended raw diet. Clearly, protein is always so high, but I don't know how to help with this. Any suggestions? Yeah, you can screenshot the recipe too, but so that is kind of something I would need just to know more info about, I guess. I'm still not comfortable with doing things like therapeutic diets or things that have to do with veterinary assistance. I've worked in the vet industry, but I kind of just, I'm not comfortable with like telling people things like that yet, but I'm happy to look at your dog's blood work and kind of see what things look like there and give you some ideas or suggestions. Yeah. So if anyone wants to screenshot this, I'm gonna try and do a cat one really quick. I really wanted to do a puppy one because puppies and kittens are like hard to formulate for. But I'll do a kitten and see what we can do there. Okay, cool. Thanks, Julie. So let's do a kitten. So let's say our kitten is 3 pounds. I kind of forgot like the weight per month kittens are usually at. I don't know. Is 3 pounds the right weight for a kitten at 4 months old? Let's see. 3 months. 3 months. Okay, we'll do 3 months. 3 to 4, we'll do 3.5. Have to drop, but very helpful. Thank you. Okay, I'll upload this, Kelly, if you need to watch it or see something that you are gonna miss. Yeah, I guess it depends on the breed of kitten too. 9-month-old at 12 pounds. Geez. Well, we'll say general kitten, 3 pounds at 3.5 months old. Of course, well, most kittens actually I see get altered at that age. At least the vet I worked at would alter them at that age, but we're gonna keep this kitten intact because that's what we should do. And yes, so everything's looking good here. So around 220 calories and around 3.8 ounces of food. So let's clear this saved recipe and start from scratch. So I have the cat and kitten cheat sheet up here. Let's scroll to the kitten one. What age do you suggest a kitten is altered? I usually like to wait as long as you can, but I know with males it's kind of hard. Tangy was altered before I even adopted him at like 4 or 5 months old. He's okay, but obviously like it's good to let those hormones, you know, be there while they're growing. So as long as you can stand it with a male cat, you can wait as long as you can. Once they start spraying, I know it's kind of hard to deal with that. Dr. Judy Morgan writes on this on her Instagram. Check it out. Yes, Dr. Judy Morgan would probably have a lot of good information on that. Okay. And of course, female cats, you know, start going in heat pretty early. So that can be annoying and hard to deal with too. So yes, you're welcome, Erin. Okay, so let's start. We're kind of getting close to 4, but I don't mind going over a little bit. Okay, so what kind of meaty bones do cats and kittens usually eat? Well, I have them right here. So I have whole prey and I have raw meaty bones. So let's just stick to the raw meaty bones. Mixing whole prey and DIY is fine, but let's keep it simple. So another problem is that not all these meaty bones are going to be in the formulator because they haven't been analyzed. So let's find one that has. Darn, I should have done a chicken wing or a chicken neck for this one. Because chicken necks are a good one for kittens. I mean, we could use chicken wing tips are good, but obviously in the formulator, it's the whole chicken wing, so that the numbers might be off there. Of course, tips aren't going to have as much calcium as like the flat and the drumette. What about quail? Yes, quail would be perfect, but I only have whole prey quail in here. There hasn't been any quail meaty bones that have been analyzed. So let's just go with the chicken neck again. I hate always using the necks. Oops. But we'll do it So chicken neck. Again, for those of you who have not seen my first like beginning part of the dog one, we want to figure out how much bone is in the chicken neck. So I'll just quickly do that. So chicken neck has about 50 to 75% bone if it's skinless. And then we need about 10% plus, actually, sorry, for kittens, it's about 5 to 8%. Cats do a lot better on a lower bone intake, but the problem is the calcium and phosphorus ratio, which I'll get to. It's kind of wacky at 5 to 8%. But okay, 8%, let's do 8%. So 8%, we're on the dog one, 8% of 3.8 ounces is how much bone we need. So 8% of 3.8 is about 0.3 ounces. But of course, the weight of the neck is not only bone. So 50% of that is bone, 50% of that is muscle meat, or 75. But I like to use 50. So 50% of 0.3, well, no, we have to do 50% of the weight of the neck. So most necks are about 1.2 ounces. I'll just put that there. So 50% of 1.2. So 0.6 ounces of the neck is bone only. What was I doing last time? Okay, sorry. So 0.6 of 1.2 is bone. And we can kind of just like take a look down here and see it's already meeting the calcium. It's close to the phosphorus. We'll keep it at this for now, but it's going to change. So next I like to do liver. So let's say, I don't want to make this difficult because if we use a poultry liver, copper, and it's just going to be so hard to not have to supplement copper. So let's just keep beef liver. If you have only poultry liver, you're going to have to supplement copper. I'm sorry. But okay, so I like to start out small again. So this is a very little kitten, only needing 3.8 ounces, maybe. So we'll start out with like 0.1 ounce. Let's see if that meets the copper. Maybe not. Does not. So 0.2. Copper is finally met. So we can stop there with the liver. We don't need to feed anymore. So let's go to the second organ. Second secreting organ, we can choose out of this. And kittens in particular have a very high requirement for iron. So which one of these is super high in iron? Well, eyeballs and spleen. As a noob, it would probably be pretty hard to find eyeballs. Basically, you can only find those online unless you have like a farmer in your area that can maybe get that for you, or a butcher. But spleen is a little bit easier to find, not always, but you can get it. And of course, you can get it online too. So beef spleen is pretty common. So we'll do that. And let's say, I don't know, usually the spleen for kittens, or the second secreting organ for kittens, is around 6 to 8%. So let's do 8%. 8% of 3.8, which is the weight of food that this kitten most likely needs, is about 0.3. So let's start out with 0.3 ounces. Let's check that iron. Oh, it's being met. So cool. We can stop there with the spleen and go on to the muscular organs. So again, these are things like heart, lung, green stripe, gizzards. And with kitties, we also have to keep an eye on the taurine, which heart and tongue in particular are very high in taurine. Is it being met yet? No. So let's add that heart. Heart. Last time I did chicken heart, so let's do beef heart. And usually, muscular organs can be around 25% maximum. So, I mean, I could do the math, or I could just like start putting in numbers and guess. So let's start out with like 0.4 ounces. Keeping an eye on the total meals, weight, and the calories. So taurine getting there. We can, stop there because we don't want to add too much. Once we start adding muscular meat, that will start to be met. So let's stop with the heart for now and go on to the muscular meat. So kitties are, they have a high requirement for B vitamins as well as iron. So red meats are usually a better choice, but not necessarily like a crazy necessity for that red meat, but let's just start with some red meats. So beef, we can do ground beef again. We can do a higher fat percentage because kittens also need a higher fat diet. So we can do 80-20. I kind of hate using like hamburger meat type stuff. But let's try it. We won't add too much. So let's do like 0.8 ounces. Let's see. I can't find either spleen or eyeballs. Is there anything else I can use for a replacement? I don't know. That's hard. If you can find lungs, they're also pretty high in iron, but that's also kind of hard to find. You may end up having to use a iron supplement. Muscular meats, red meats and stuff do provide iron, but they're not going to be meeting that intake, I don't think, for kittens. Depending on size of animal and all that I can find, cow eyeball, spleen, green tripe through Big Dan's trucking. Yes, green tripe is also something that can be high in iron. So if you can find green tripe, that might meet the requirements as well. What do you mean you hate using hamburger meat? Just wondering because I was planning. So it's not that I hate using it. It's just that like, it's not the highest quality. And it's just kind of like fat input meat and then ground up, which isn't bad. I still use it, but I don't know. It's just a quality type thing. If I got grass fed and finished beef, that's 80-10 or sorry, 20-80-20, I'd be happier, but just, I don't know. It's just a personal thing. It's nothing that you should, kind of worry about if that's all you can feed. Yes, I usually order spleen from Raw Feeding Miami as well. Okay, so ground beef, let's add, I don't know, let's just add pork just to keep it simple. And we'll do some pork chops because that has more fat on them. So we'll do the lean and fat pork chops. Center loin, let's try that. So we're at 2.9 ounces right now. We need to be at 3.8 around that. So let's do like 1.2 ounces of pork. Oh, that's a little high. So we'll stick to 1 and see what things are looking at right now. So we're actually pretty good on the calories, great on the amino acids and fatty acids and most of these minerals. Zinc is still a little low, that's typical. Manganese is still low, typical. Iodine, vitamin D, and vitamin E. And then the vitamin B1 is a little low, which kittens have a very high requirement for. Cats in general have a very high requirement for it. We can try and increase the pork to see if that helps. So let's do 1.2. If you don't want to feed, 4 ounces, which we're pretty close, it's like 3.8, so that's fine. And we're still not even meeting the caloric intake just perfectly yet. So we're not going to probably get there. But if you add nutritional yeast, that will definitely help. As of course, the folic acid is going to be super low too, because they just have such high requirements for this. This may be obvious, but if we want to add an ingredient to the formulator, for example, duck wings, could you show us how you would find the ingredient info and how to add an item? So with meaty bones, that's very, very hard to find. Like you might see duck wing or chicken wing in like the food data websites like Food Data Central or nutritiondata.self, but it will be without the bone. It'll just be the muscle meat surrounding it. So it's very hard to find bone data. Pretty much every meaty bone that has been analyzed, I almost have everything in this formulator. There's a few that I'm going to be adding in the update that's coming up, but yeah. If you just need to know like how to add an ingredient, I can do that, but yeah. We can do that really quick, yeah. So let's finish this meal up. So of course, these 2 B vitamins are probably not going to be met yet. We can start adding whole foods to see if it helps, but we're not there yet, and we may have to add some nutritional yeast. Let's take a look at the macros and PMR. So fat is looking good for kittens. 10 to 12, maybe even for 15% fat is ideal. Bone, oh, we're at like 14% bone. So what I would like to do is increase the second secreting organ just a little, but that might change some ratios a little bit, so we'll keep an eye on that really quick. But let's increase the muscular organ a little and decrease the bone, because we don't want to feed too much bone here. We also don't want to be too low in calcium, which it'll basically be too low. So that's why kitten and puppy raw diets are so hard. So let's focus on the percentage right now. So around 8% is what kittens do best on. If we feed more than that, they might start to have chalky stool. So let's try and get that percentage corrected really quick. So let's do 0.7 ounces of bone, and let's increase the heart a little bit to like 0.6. And see what's going on here. So 9. I wouldn't be worried about 9 if everything else gets perfected. Liver is at like 5%. We can actually decrease the liver, I think. Let's see. Because now that we have other foods in here, the copper might be met through those foods, and it's still a little low. So 0.15. Copper is being met now. So for now, let's keep it like that. And then the percentages, we're at 4, 8, 9, 16. Okay, this is looking okay. So let's take a look now at some whole foods we can add, and then we'll get back to the calcium issue. So let's see, some whole foods are going to be right here. So again, we'll start with the omega-3s, fish, and the vitamin D, which some fish can also provide as well. So we used salmon last time, so let's go with mackerel. Mackerel and raw mackerel. So it only takes the smallest bit, and we're feeding a kitten, so let's start out with 0.2 ounces. And omega-3s, they're being met, and the vitamin D is being met, so very easily at 0.2 ounces. Then next we've got vitamin E. Let's use vitamin E oil again. We'll do the now vitamin E this time. 1 drop. And that's going to meet it super easily. So we'll keep it at that for now. Iodine, we will do the kelp powder again. Actually, oh yeah, let's do that. Kittens, let's see what our kitten needs. About 99, 100 micrograms. So let's just take a guess. We'll do 22.5 because that's 1/4 scoop. 22.5 milligrams of kelp. Let's see what that does. Okay, that's meeting it pretty well. You could go a little lower. You could do like a 5th scoop, but yeah, you can just play with it. It's just going to be the smallest amount, honestly. Next, manganese is not being met. Let's say we can't find mussels or tripe, so we're going to have to supplement. So what I like to use are the trace mineral manganese drops or the Solgar chelated manganese. Obviously, it's going to be easier to use the drops. So let's use these drops. 1 drop, easy, it meets it. I wouldn't always use that, by the way. I like to rotate supplements and whole foods, so I would try to rotate that if you can with other things. And then the zinc. I think the zinc is still a little low. Yes, so we can do the oysters again, or we can do a zinc supplement. We're not too high on the weight of food or the calories, so let's do oysters. I always like to use whole foods if I can. So let's do 0.1 ounce for now. At least we're meeting the zinc. We're gonna have to alter it once we do the ratios, but we're meeting it for now. So we still have these two B vitamins that need to be met. So let's do the nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast powder is what I use. I mean, you can use the flakes as well, but I just use the powder, and it says it's in teaspoons that we need to measure it out. So let's start out with like, it again, this only takes the smallest amount. So let's do like an 1/8 teaspoon. That'll probably meet it super easily. Yes, we've got those met. So now we have to kind of deal with the calcium and phosphorus, which is always hard for people because we're at 9% bone. We cannot go any higher. Some kittens would probably do fine on higher intake. Some kittens won't. So let's assume my kitten won't. We're at 0.8 to 1 right now, and we need to be at 1.1 to 1. So what we can do is, how should I go about this? You could do a calcium supplement, or you could do eggshell powder, but the thing with kittens is that the absorption of the calcium is a little worse than it would be for an adult. So let's try doing the seaweed calcium. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's Animal Essentials makes this. It's seaweed calcium. It also provides phosphorus and a few other minerals. So you would have to buy this, but let's just try it out. So this is per teaspoon as well. So let's start out small. Let's do a 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so a 1/4 teaspoon brings it up a little too high. So let's do an 1/8 teaspoon. Perfect. We're at the perfect ratio now. We still need to bring it up a little bit, and I'll show you something with that in a second. And we're still around a good bone intake, but we need to bring it up. So that's a problem, because if we bring it up, then the ratio is, bad now. So we need basically to add more phosphorus into the meal. And what does that is adding more muscle meat and muscular organs, but specifically muscular organs and secreting organs. But again, we have to kind of, look at these ratios and make sure nothing's too high. But we can increase the muscular organ a bit. So let's try that. Let's increase the heart to about 8. And actually the phosphorus is a little too low. So we may actually have to increase the bone just a tiny bit. Let's do 7.5. And this might be like, the bone intake might be a little high with chicken necks, but might be perfect with like something like chicken wings. So it's never going to be perfectly perfect with every single bone. But let's try. So we're at 4.3 ounces. That's a little, it's not too much higher. So I'm okay with increasing things a bit, because we're still, not meeting that caloric intake perfectly yet either. So how should I do this? Fish also provides some phosphorus to the diet, so I could increase the fish just a little. That didn't really change anything, so I'm going to bring it back down. This is where you start having to play with things. Phosphorus is still low. And honestly, let me see. Let's see. No, can't do that. I mean, we could, in this instance, try another supplement. I mean, we could try the eggshell powder. This is by grams, so start out small, 0.2 grams, that helps the ratio. Nope, that's not what I meant. So that helps the calcium to phosphorus ratio. It's still a little low, so we just got to play with it, continue to play with it. try bringing that up a little higher. And even if it's like 1.3 or 1-to-1, that's not, you know, crazy detrimental. This phosphorus is so annoying. Oh, sorry, I have some questions. Hold on. How do we get the updated cheat sheet formulator or cheat sheet / formulator as members? The cheat sheets are uploaded in the perks tab. Yeah, just check in the perks tab. You'll see it in there somewhere. I forgot which, let me see. It's right in, oh, it's at the bottom of bonuses. You'll see it says cheat sheets. And the formulator is something that you'll have to buy. It doesn't come with a membership, but you can get it on my website, positiveprey.com. Are you still answering questions? Sorry, I'm so late. I can still answer some questions. I'm going a little over time, but that's okay. I want to finish this meal so I can answer some questions. Since mixing poultry with red meats is better for variety, which organs / muscle meats would you recommend to be poultry and which to be red meats? That doesn't matter really, honestly. Like you can mix and match either way. I would probably make the bulk of the meal, which would be the muscular meat, the red meats, and feed, you know, poultry muscular organs like gizzards or heart. But yeah, you can mix and match. But what if we already purchased the formulator? So if you don't have the updated version, I can just send it to you. You can get free updates if you already have the formulator. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so we basically have, let's check the ratios. I really don't want to go more with the bone. I can bring up the spleen the tiniest bit. So we're at 1.2 to 1 right now. That's still okay. I just don't want to increase too much. And again, I'm like trying to perfect this diet. You don't have to perfect it every single, you know, formulated meal that you make. For kittens and puppies, of course, you need to keep an eye on, you know, meeting those nutrients, but it was like 0.01 gram, and now it's meeting it pretty well. It's at 40. So I'm going to stop right there with messing with the calcium to phosphorus and take a look at the zinc to copper. So zinc to copper is around 8.8 to 1. And we're at 7.6. I wouldn't, you know, die over this, but let's just try and perfect it just for the video. So zinc needs to be increased a little. What is it doing? Hold on. It's because I'm not doing the right one. That's why. So 0.2 ounces brings it up to 9.5. That's a little too much. So let's do 0.15, 8.6. That's close enough. So let's go to the zinc to iron. Zinc to iron should be 0.9 to 1. Perfect. We're at 0.9 to 1. And those are the main ones I usually look at. You can take a look at, you know, LA to ALA does not matter as much. I mean, it does, but those are the main ones that I look at. So, okay, I think we've got this meal as perfect as we can get it with the ingredients that we're using. So we're at 4.5, almost 4.6 ounces of food. That's normal. It's usually a little bit higher. We're meeting the caloric intake we're over 1 calorie, almost 2, but that's okay. Nothing looks like it's in excess. Just double checking. Yeah, everything looks good here. Okay. These, of course, with the notes will be appearing low because, again, food data websites do not provide some of the data for these nutrients, but it is going to be met because it's very bioavailable and found in a lot of muscular meats and organ meats. A lot of people think that they should add an egg every day because the choline isn't being met, and I mean you can, but it's probably being met already. That's just the issue with food data websites and food data in general. It's not always going to be perfect or accurate. The fat, it's good. We're at almost 10%, which is perfect. A little high on the bone, but that's the best we could do right now. Everything else is looking good. and the ratios are looking good. So that is my little kitten meal. And since we're about 15 minutes over, I guess I'm going to end this now. I wish I could have done more, but that just like took forever. But I hope it was helpful for you guys. I'll upload this video, and if you missed it, or if you need some, if you want to look at the recipe or anything, feel free. So yeah, you're welcome. Sorry I'm like blown out. It's like so bright on my face, but hopefully you weren't looking at me. So yeah, okay. Stop sharing my screen. Okay, yay, you're welcome. Thanks for joining, everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.